maybe even more important toward Ohio State's future in 2022, of course, would be a new defensive coordinator has been named. Jim Knowles of Oklahoma State. Folks, if you want to go through the metrics of Oklahoma State defense in 2021, if you're not aware, and much of it came to the national prominence the last couple of weeks of the season when they beat Oklahoma in Bedlam, went to the Big 12 championship game, and despite a loss, still held Baylor down to only 21 points and not much on offense. So he certainly did the job at his last stop.
Certainly. And frankly, he's done a good job everywhere he's been. I mean, he was the head coach at his alma mater at Cornell. He was a defensive coordinator at Duke, was in the SEC with Ole Miss for a short period of time. The biggest, numbers that jump off the page to you are what happened this past year at Oklahoma State. 3rd in total defense, 7th in scoring defense. They were top 10 nationally in sacks, tackles for a loss, and 3rd down defense. All things that Ohio State fans are very familiar with this Buckeye team not doing a great job of this past season, and even going back to last season. So it's an interesting situation. He's not going to take over the defensive coordinator role until January 2nd, after the bowl games are all done. That means that the current Ohio State coaching staff should remain intact through the early signing period that starts on December 15th, and obviously the Rose Bowl game. So we won't see too much difference in the Rose Bowl, but he will begin to get to work with these guys. I think his defense makes a lot of sense for Ohio State. Ryan Day went out and found somebody who knows what he's doing defensively, but also still kind of fits in the general framework of Ohio State's defense, a 4-2-5 scheme. Can play with some guys down the box, bring some exotic blitzes. One of the things I found when doing some research was he has a position that they've called the jack linebacker, which is like a stand-up defensive end linebacker. But he really moves them around, that player around quite a bit, which allows the other linebackers to do some different things. So I think that'll be very interesting, especially when you get into some of these Big Ten games you saw against Michigan, how easily they were able to run. Now you have that position where you can kind of change out what you need to do in order to get the best looks against the offense you're facing. Who that'll be, who will play that, which players will play that position for Ohio State, we'll find out down the line. But he's used something similar to Ohio State's bullet position. They have a player similar to what Ronnie Hickman did this year in Malcolm Rodriguez, led the team in tackles, was a converted safety to linebacker. So a similar situation there. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's good that Ryan Day got this done when he did, announcing it December 7th. That means there doesn't need to be a ton of questions about what you're going to do with the defense, There'll still be questions about Jim Knowles. There'll be questions about the staff, I imagine, but it lessens some of that to some degree. So a real good step. I really like what I've learned about him, and I think it's going to be a good fit with the Buckeyes, assuming he's able to just run the defense. Ryan Day can run the offense, and obviously Ryan Day's still the head coach, but let the guy who knows defense handle things and make the final decisions on that side of the ball.
Ohio State fans, if you're skeptical about competition maybe in the Big 12, let's consider this. We're at a time of the year where obviously with non-conference matchups all over the place in bowl games, we're trying to get a read on how good teams are and how good the competition was. Yeah, the Big 10 is, I think by most estimations, better than the Big 12. But the Big 12, solid conference, good offense. Oklahoma State, really a quarterback, wide receiver-driven school under Mike Gundy. And then Jim Knowles gets there, and actually they won on defense the last couple of years, and specifically, as Pat points out this year, when you look at a defense, 7th in the nation in points against. Ohio State was 25th against the run, number 5 in the nation. Number 5, if you look at yards per play, rushing the football, yards per play total, only number 4 in the country. Ohio State was 38th. Total defense, number 3. Ohio State 50th. Just across the board, they were just not a flash in the pan this year either. They've been a top-notch defense for the last few years. So Jim Knowles certainly has delivered.
Yeah, and they've gotten better each year, which I think is important. And a lot of what I was learning about him last night was, this past year's defense was a veteran group who kind of grew up under him these last 3-4 years. And so it'll take some time to install everything he wants to do at Ohio State. Let's keep in mind, he's working with mostly 3, some 4-star kids at Oklahoma State. And that's not a shot at the Cowboys. It's just a different program, not on the same level recruiting wise. At Ohio State, he's going to have the best of the best at these positions. He'll also have an offense, as you mentioned. Oklahoma State's offense hasn't been as prolific as it had in the past. He'll have an offense that under Ryan Day and CJ Stroud, and yes, they'll lose some receivers and things like that, but an offense that keeps the ball, that will not require them to get a stop almost every time, things like that, that will make some of that easier, give them more time on the sideline. So I think all in all, it just makes a lot of sense to bring in a guy like this. And the Big 12 is known for their offense, right? That's what these teams, Oklahoma, Texas, when Texas is right. All of these teams have been known for high-powered offenses, high-flying offenses, and they were able to shut a lot of those offenses down this year. The Big Ten, obviously very different, especially as the weather gets colder and things like that. But you've got a guy who's kind of seen it all at different spots that he's been in. So again, I think it's a good hire.
Yeah, it seems like an airtight home run hire. We shall see.